Alright y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing something kind of simple. It's kind of a version of candy, so to speak, for me being more on the keto side of diet these days. So I'm going to take some fruit and I'm going to slice it up and dehydrate it. Just starting with some strawberries. I'm going to have some blueberries, blackberries. I'm going to try some cherries as well. And then of course my old favorite, the araya melon there. First things first, strawberries tend to get a little funky after a while. So dehydrating them is one of the best way to preserve them, in my opinion. So again, like I said with every other fruit and vegetable, you want to make sure they're good and rinsed off. And then I'm going to slice them individually and layer them on my food dehydrator individually as well, so we don't get across flavors and things like that. But so again, first things first, got my strawberries washed off here. I'm going to start with those. We're going to want to cut the green end off. And then you don't want to cut your fruit too thin when you're dehydrating it. There's a lot of moisture and water content in fruit. So you want to leave it on the thicker side so you get like a nice chewy piece and it's not too crispy and crumbly. So we're going to start with the strawberries first, and then I'm going to do some blueberries, some blackberries. I'm going to try cherries, never done it before, and then that araya melon like before. So again, we're going to take our strawberries, just cut that end off, set it aside. Generally when I'm prepping fruits and vegetables, I like to get one job done all at once and then go back and finish the job on the others, meaning, so I'm going to cut all the ends off first. I'm not going to cut them off and then slice them individually. We'll get it all done at the same time. To me, when you're trying to prep and things like that, it just works out so much better. Then you're not getting caught up and bogged down trying to do too many things at once. So again, just cutting off the ends here. Once we get them all cut off, I'll show you about the thickness where we're going to want to slice these. Again, we want them somewhat thick, not too thick, but somewhat thick so they don't dry out too much. And then they're just kind of crispy and crunchy, which isn't bad. I mean, to each their own. People do like it that way as well when they're talking about dehydrated fruit. But for me, I like them a little more chewy. So once I get all these done, again, I'll show you what thickness we want to slice them at. So now that we got all the strawberries ends cut off, we're just going to go ahead and throw that away. Ain't no use in keeping that. So again, we're going to slice these a bit here. And I'm going to show you the gauge or thickness I'm looking for. So on the bigger strawberry like that, probably about 4 slices. Nice and thick. We want them, you know, significantly chewy. So I'm just going to go through here and we're going to slice up all these strawberries, and then I'm going to start layering them in the food dehydrator. Once you start getting to some of these smaller ones, you might only need 2 or even 1 cut on them just to split them down the center. I'm noticing these probably need a little bit more than that, so go ahead and get, you know, 3 slices out of each of these smaller strawberries. Once I get all done with this, we'll layer them in the food dehydrator, and I'll start on my blackberries next. Pretty straightforward cutting though. I'm going to get them all done at the same time. Again, we're not going to go back and forth. Slicing and then layering, slicing and then layering. It's just a lot easier to get all your prep done this way. So this is kind of a small one. See, I only cut it in half. Again, we're getting a nice thick gauge out of it. And once these are all finished, we'll get them layered on the dehydrator. Alright, sliced up strawberries there. And I got one of those old school Presto food dehydrators here. Any food dehydrator really would work for this, but this is just one that I've had around forever. Now, when I'm layering these, we don't want a bunch of them. We want to give enough space in between so that the warm air that circulates through the dehydrator has enough space to get through. And that way, if they're all clumped up together, what tends to happen is the pieces will get stuck together. So I'm trying to get all the strawberries on one shelf here of the dehydrator. If I need to go into another shelf, not a big deal. It can be with other fruit on each one. I just prefer them to kind of keep them separate so we know what kind of flavors we're looking for on each of the fruits. It does look like I'm going to probably have to go ahead and add another shelf just to get the rest of these strawberries on there. I can kind of, you know, group them up a little bit more over on this side. Again, you just want enough room so that the air can circulate freely. So that's about all I can fit on that shelf. So go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and start with another shelf here. Now, the way this dehydrator works, you have your base shelf, which has a couple tabs on it. That's going to go ahead and keep it steady on top of the dehydrator itself. It comes with 2 of those, as well as 2 shelves without that. So the next shelf you're going to want to do is actually going to go upside down. So it kind of zigzags up and down, accordion style. Now, this way it doesn't give you as much room as the other way the shelf is, but that's all right. We should be able to fit it all on there. Shouldn't be a big deal. And again, keeping all these strawberries kind of together, but at the same time spaced out so that they can flow freely. Once we get all those on there, I'll show you what we're going to do with the blackberries. Alright, got the blackberries rinsed off. Now these are significantly smaller, so what we're going to want to do is we're just going to want to go one cut right down the center. These do tend to bleed out a lot, and they can stain your clothes, so be careful with that. But the gauge and thickness of this is going to be perfect, just cutting them in half lengthwise. And cut each one individually. Not a whole lot of cleanup or trimming on these. These are kind of straightforward. But again, give them a good rinse. You want to get all that dirt and all that stuff off there, especially before you're using them in a recipe or dehydrating them like I am today. You don't want any of that stuck to your food when you're trying to eat it there. Once we get all these done again, I'm going to go ahead and get them layered up in the food dehydrator. And next layer, we're going to do blueberries. I'll show you what I recommend for that next. Alright, got them all sliced up. Now these are going to be a bit more fragile, and they are, getting kind of funky, so you want to be careful. But again, these are a lot smaller, so you can layer those pretty well on here, close together. I like to take the part that is split and put it on the actual outside facing down. That's going to help it to dehydrate properly, as well as not stick as much to the shelf. These can become a bit closer than the strawberries just because of their size. So we're going to get them all packed up on there, ready to dehydrate. Looks like we'll be adding another shelf after this, unless I can get all the blueberries on there, but it's not looking like I'm going to have enough room, which is okay. It does only have 4 shelves, so we want to make sure we maximize each one, get as much stuff on there as we can. Once they're all on there, these will turn out actually really nice and chewy, kind of like the blueberries and the strawberries. I am going to try something new on a dehydrator. It's going to be cherries, but we'll have to get the pit out of those. And cherries is something that I've never really tried on here, so we're going to see how that goes. I'm going to show you how to get the pit out, hopefully without damaging the cherry too much. But we should be able to get it all to fit. Shouldn't be that big of a deal. Alright, all the blackberries on there. And I'm going to give my blueberries a rinse, and then I'll show you what we're going to do with those. Alright, blueberries all rinsed off here. So now these are jumbo blueberries. I would like them a little bigger if I can find them. Right now, though, at the store, they do have the jumbo blueberries for a reasonable price. They're about $5 for one of the bigger containers. So now these, not going to cut them at all because they're much smaller. If I did have some of those jumbos that are about that big, I probably would slice it. And if I did, I would slice it this way, right through the center, almost like a donut. But we're not going to do that with these because these are a little on the smaller side. So I'm going to start layering them in there on the shelf here, just whole. And again, they are much smaller, so you can give them, a little closer together, packed in there. These should be a nice treat once they're all done. Now we're to that point where I need another shelf again. So we're going to take the second shelf with the handles or tabs, and it's going to go straight up and down on that. And this shelf does give me some more room, so we're going to go ahead and put these blueberries on there, spaced out pretty evenly, the best I can. It won't take up too much space. I don't have a whole lot of them left. But on the rest of this shelf, I'm going to go ahead and try to do some cherries. We're only going to do a few, again, because I'm not sure how it's going to turn out. I'm sure they'll be great, but being the first time doing it with the cherries, I don't want to do too many and have it turn out, you know, messed up or anything like that. But always give your cutting board a good wipe down too between fruits, just for the case of like the bleed of whatever, you know, red fruit or dark fruit you're using. So at the next step, I'm going to wash off my cherries, and then I'm going to show you how we're going to go about those. And just as a heads up on the cherries, before we rinse them, I'm going to go ahead and take the stem off of each one of them. Definitely don't want that in the mix. Get all those stems off of there. And I'm going to show you with a paring knife the best way to split these and to try to get that pit out of it. But just like the blackberries, these are going to bleed a bunch. And cherry, anyone knows, will stain pretty much anything. So we definitely want to be cautious not to get them on our clothes or anything, or to cut it, stain our cutting board too much. But we'll work it out. So now I got all the stems off here. I'm going to go ahead and rinse them, and then we shall get started. Alright, cherries all rinsed off. So again, with my paring knife, I'm going to kind of want to follow along the pit inside, just with my hand here. And once I get around a bunch of them, we're going to twist them to pull them apart. And sometimes you got to be careful though. The way I'm going to do getting the pit out of it, you got to be careful sometimes. I use the tip of the knife, but you also don't want to cut yourself. So be cautious on what you're doing. Again, we're not going to do too many of these. I'll probably do like 10 total. And split them, get the pit out of them, put them on our dehydrator, and we'll see how they turn out. Now, when you're dehydrating fruit, again, high water content, so we're going to want to, you know, let it go for a while. I'm going to say this is probably going to be an overnight thing, maybe even a little longer. I'll check them in the morning. We want to go about 6 hours to start, checking, you know, every hour or two, just to make sure that they're not rushing through the dehydrating process too much. Alright, so there's our cherries. I'm going to set these aside. We'll just snack on those in a little bit. So, again, with the cherry, we have it split down the side. We're going to twist it. And you see how it comes off pretty good there? And then this pit, if it gets stuck too much, which sometimes you can get it out with your fingers like I just did. And that's optimal. That's how you want to do it. But if they do get too stuck and you have to use the tip of the knife, like I said, just be careful not to cut yourself. But these ones are turning out pretty good. I don't need to do it too much. And also be cautious on damaging up the fruit. You don't want it to look all mangled and whatnot. Especially the cherries here when you're getting that pit out of it. You want everything to look pretty. Again, this is kind of our candy snack, so to speak. Now that we don't have sugar in our diet. Though there is sugar in all fruit, you got to be conscious of that, but it's natural sugar. It's going to be significantly healthier than that white refined sugar. So once we get all these done and split, get the pit out of each one, which we're almost there, I'm going to layer these very similar to how I did with the blackberries. I want the skin side down and the half moon's facing up there, and that's going to help it not to stick too much to the shelf of the dehydrator, as well as get a nice even dehydrating. Alright, that's the last one there. So again, we're going to just go ahead and get those all on our shelf. And then last but not least, I'll do the melon, and we'll get that on there as well. Alright, just getting the rest of these cherries on here. And once we get that all stacked on the shelves, I'm going to wash my hands, wipe my cutting board down, and we're going to start cutting that melon. Not going to use the whole melon. I'll probably keep about half of it just to eat as is, and then the other half will dehydrate, and it should be a nice, good snack. Alright, araya melon. Again, rinsed off. We're going to cut the ends off here like so. Flip it on its side. We're going to split it right down the center. Get a nice spoon and get all those seeds out of there. My wife does have a method to preserving the seeds. That way we can use them in the garden if we want. Not all fruit you get from the store will grow real well. when you try to save the seeds and do that, but some of them do. Just kind of trying to get the most of the meat out of there as I can. The rind gets thrown away. But I'm going to take my spoon, get all that seed and stuff out of there. So basically what you do is you take your seeds in a bowl, and then you're going to want to soak them. You soak them for like a day or so. It'll help separate all the membrane that is on the seeds, and that's also going to help separate it. And that way you can kind of go through each of the seeds. You're going to want to let them dry off afterwards on a paper towel. And once they're dry, we can go ahead and plant them in the garden, see if they take. A lot of times they do, sometimes they don't. But that's one method to having more melons later down the road. And again, just scooping out the rest of the seeds here. Again, you want to be aware of what you're doing when you're scooping them. You don't want to take too much of that meat off of the fruit. That's all the good stuff that you want to eat. And sometimes you do got to kind of scrape it just to get them all out. But once we get them all out of there, we'll show you how to slice these for the dehydrator. So as I was saying before, I'm going to kind of save half of it just to eat as is. But what I'm going to do is, in the first video when I was slicing this melon, I kind of showed you how to do wedges. That way we can kind of dice them up. Now, in order to do this, I'm going to want these slices a bit thinner. So I'm going to go ahead and take this. You want a nice like quarter to half inch thick slice. Like so. And get the rind off of there as well. And these are going to be nice big pieces. Again, thick enough so that they don't get too dry and crunchy. But once we get all this melon done, we'll start layering them on the dehydrator as well. And then we can turn it on and get it going. Again, probably an overnight thing. I want to check it as much as possible. Again, you're just trying to maintain and make sure that it's not getting too dry. We want these a bit chewy. So once we get all of our melons sliced up here, nice and thick, we'll get them layered on the food dehydrator and we'll crank it up. Alright, we got our melon all sliced up. And it's really up to you on the size pieces you want to put in there. Now, these are optimal to me, the size that's like a half moon. These bigger pieces, you're welcome to do it that large as well. I just think that the dehydrating process will go a lot faster if we kind of cut them down just a little bit. Again, the heat and the air in the dehydrator will get it nice, have a lot of nice surface area for them. So we're just going to start popping these on our shelves as well. These are a lot bigger, so you want to kind of make sure you're going to give it enough room. That way it doesn't get overcrowded and you won't have it stacked on top of each other. So we're at that point where we need our fourth shelf. Again, it's going to be the upside down style. So put it right on there. And I'm going to get the rest of this melon on here. And if you go like in an organized fashion, like so, you tend to be able to fit more on. If you just tend to throw it on there, it takes up too much space. But this way we can get it all on there nice and evenly. Whatever's left over, I'm not going to fret about. We're going to eat it as is. Like I was saying, we'll put it all in the mix with the rest of the melon when we eat it, either tonight or tomorrow. Now that the melon is cut, you're definitely going to want to go ahead and eat it as quick as possible because it doesn't tend to last long. And again, these araya melons, they have such a nice sweet texture and flavor to them, kind of a creamy texture. They'll turn out perfectly. Good, nice sugar content on those. And with that being said there, the next step to do, we're going to put on our lid here. And we're going to plug it in. We're going to give it a couple hours to start. And once we have a couple hours in, I'm going to come back and check it. You can rotate it as well, but just keep in mind and keep, a conscious thought that the way these are stacked up kind of accordion style, you're going to have to make sure that you go back the same pattern. So it would be this shelf on the bottom versus this one, and so on. But that's our start to dehydrating fruit for our snacks. Stay tuned for the video. I'll probably put a short together showing exactly how everything turned out. But thanks for watching.